Parents said, everyone has issues with their parents. As if that made mine feel less like a punch to the throat. My mother was standing by the sink with her back to me, rinsing out her favorite blue mug like the conversation was just another dirty dish. My dad was at the kitchen table, chair tilted back on two legs, phone in his hand, not even looking up while he delivered that line. My fingers were tight around my own mug, the tea long gone lukewarm. I could feel my pulse in the base of my throat, that weird fluttery panic that makes it hard to swallow. I'm not talking about like rolling my eyes at you in high school, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. I'm saying I have panic attacks when my phone lights up with your names. That's not just issues. Dad snorted, thumb still scrolling. You're so dramatic, he said. Everyone thinks their childhood screwed them up nowadays. It's the fashion. Mom turned off the tap, set the mug upside down on the rack with a little more force than necessary, and finally turned around. Her face had that pinched, disappointed look that used to mean I'd failed a test or spilled juice on the good tablecloth. We did our best, she said. We weren't perfect. No one is. But you're not special because you think we made mistakes. Everyone does. This was 3 weeks ago. I'm 30F now, and I went over there on a Sunday because my therapist suggested I could try talking to them about why I'd been pulling back. If you feel safe enough. I laughed when she said safe. Therapy has made me realize how low my bar for safe has always been. I grew up in one of those houses that look fine from the outside. Red brick, small front yard with a rosebush my mom fussed over. A basketball hoop over the garage that my brother used more than anyone else. Neighbors waved, we hosted decent birthday parties, we sent out Christmas cards with us all in matching sweaters one year. Inside, everything felt tight, like the air was just a little thinner than it should be, like the walls were listening. My parents are not the monsters you see on documentaries. I feel like I have to say that even now, they didn't lock us in basements or burn us with cigarettes or anything that would make a mandated reporter leap into action. That's part of what's messed me up, I think. How easy it is for me to argue against my own pain because someone somewhere had it worse. What they did do was constantly shift the ground under our feet. 1 minute you're laughing at a TV show, the next minute Dad's slamming the remote on the coffee table because you made a face he didn't like. One day Mom is hugging you. The next she's not speaking to you because you embarrassed her in front of Aunt Lisa when you corrected her about your grade. I was the oldest, the smart one, the responsible one. My brother, Dylan, is 3 years younger and perfected the art of disappearing into his room with his Xbox. Our unofficial job descriptions were, I absorbed the criticism, he avoided it. Some of my earliest memories of my parents are loud. Like the time I was 6 and spilled orange juice on the couch. It was a total accident. My hand knocked the glass when I reached for the TV remote. The juice soaked into the cushion before I could even grab a towel. Dad's face went red so fast it was like someone flipped a switch. He stood up slowly, like that was scarier than if he'd jumped, and said, very quietly, "What did you just do?" "I'm sorry," I said immediately, because sorry was the first word I learned to reach for. "I'll clean it up, answer the question," he snapped. His voice had that sharp edge that made the air feel thinner. My brain blanked. "I spilled." "You spilled," he repeated louder now. "Because you weren't paying attention, because you were flailing around like a baby, because you don't think. This couch cost money we don't have to replace." I remember my heart pounding, my cheeks burning, the way my hands shook as I grabbed paper towels. I also remember looking over at my mom, who just sighed and said, "You know how your father gets when things are wasted." Like I had set him off, like he was a weather pattern and I had brought the storm on myself. Or the time in middle school when I got a 92 instead of my usual straight 100s in maths. It was one test. I'd rushed a question. My teacher had written, "Still excellent work," at the top. Dad's response when I showed him, hoping maybe for, I don't know, anything but what I got, was to slap the paper down on the table and say, "I guess you're slipping. Maybe you're not as smart as we thought." Mom laughed, but it was that brittle, tight laugh. "She did fine," she said, but then she added, You could study more instead of doodling in your notebooks, though. They never said, "We love you as you are," without a but. It was always, "We're proud of you, but don't let it go to your head," or "We love you, but you really embarrassed us when you said that in front of everyone." The thing is, they also did all the good parent things. They came to school plays. There was always food. We did Christmas, birthdays, holidays. They made sure my homework was done. They took us to the doctor. They gave me the bigger room because I was older. That contrast is what made me think for years that my feelings about them were just ingratitude. In high school, when friends complained about their parents, it was usually about curfew or not being allowed to go to a party. I'd join in, but I always felt weirdly out of place. They'd say, "My mom freaked out because I came home at 1 a.m. instead of midnight," and I'd laugh and say, "Yeah, same," and not mention the part where my dad didn't talk to me for 3 days and my mom told me I'd ruin the energy of the house with my attitude. Everyone has issues with their parents. Is something they genuinely believe. It's like their get-out-of-jail-free card. If everyone has problems, then ours don't have to be examined, right? It took me burning out completely to realize that issues doesn't quite cover whatever the hell is going on in my nervous system. Last year, I had what I guess you'd call a breakdown. I prefer my brain finally throwing up its hands and saying nope. I was at work, giving a presentation, and someone in management interrupted me with, "This is confusing, start again," in a sharp tone that sounded just close enough to my dad's that my body reacted like I was back at the kitchen table. I froze, couldn't speak. My vision narrowed. My hands went numb, like they'd fallen asleep. I managed to say, "I need a minute," and ran to the bathroom, where I had my first full-blown panic attack on the floor of a toilet cubicle. My chest hurt so much I was convinced I was dying. Coworker found me. HR, ironically, gently suggested I maybe talk to someone. Enter therapy. Honestly, I went in thinking we'd talk about work stress. I did the usual first session thing. Tried to be chill, crack jokes, make light of everything. "Yeah, my dad's kind of intense," I said, shrugging, as if intense covered all of it. "Everybody's got something, right?" My therapist, a woman in her 40s with kind eyes and an annoyingly soothing voice, just asked, "What does intense look like?" So I told her. Part of it, anyway. The shouting. The way he'd say, "Why are you crying? I'm not hitting you." As if that was the only bar that mattered. The way my mom would say, "You know how he gets, don't provoke him." We spent a few sessions dancing around it. I'd say things like, "They weren't that bad, they just had tempers," and she'd say, "And how did that feel for you?" Which is a question I hate and also apparently needed. I remember the first time she used the phrase emotional abuse. My whole body recoiled. "No, no," I said immediately. "That's too strong." They were strict. They yelled. But they loved us. We had food. I'm being dramatic. She didn't argue with me. She just laid out some criteria on her stupid little clipboard and asked me to tell her which one sounded familiar. Were your feelings often dismissed or minimized? Did you feel like you had to walk on eggshells? Were mistakes met with disproportionate anger? Were you blamed for your parents' moods? I laughed, but it came out shaky. "That's just an immigrant family," I joked. "That's just culture." She raised an eyebrow. "Maybe," she said, "culture can explain things. It doesn't have to excuse harm." That sentence has been lodged in my brain ever since. As therapy went on, I started to see patterns. How my shoulders automatically tense when I hear keys in a lock. How my first instinct when someone is annoyed is to apologize, even if I'm not sure what for. How I can't stand the sound of a raised voice, even if it's just my neighbor singing loudly to the radio. I also started pulling back from my parents without really meaning to. Phone calls went from daily to once a week. I stopped answering immediately in the family group chat. I visited less. When I did, the visits left me feeling wrung out, like someone had taken a sponge to my insides. They noticed. Of course they did. "Are you mad at us?" Mom asked on the phone one night. "I'm working through some stuff in therapy," I said, because I was trying this new thing where I don't lie about everything. I just need a bit of space. Oh, she said, and I could hear the hurt already loading. So now therapy is telling you we're bad parents. No, I said quickly. She's just helping me understand why I react certain ways. It's not about blaming you. It half was. It half wasn't. I didn't know how to explain that yet. After that, the comments started. Little throwaway lines that somehow all had the same shape. Dad, don't go digging up stuff that's over. You'll just make yourself miserable. Mom, you know those psychologists have to find something wrong, or they're out of a job. Random aunt at a family barbecue, after my mom mentioned I was seeing someone for stress. Everyone has issues with their parents. Just forgive and move on. It's wild how often people will tell you that everyone has something, as if flattening all experiences into this vague mush somehow makes the extremes okay. So when I sat in their kitchen 3 weeks ago, trying to explain why I'd been distant, that's what they reached for. I'm not saying you were demons, I told them, fingers twisting in the hem of my hoodie. I'm just saying some of the things that happened affected me. I'm not doing this to punish you. I'm doing it because I literally can't function if I keep pretending everything was fine. Dad rolled his eyes. Everything is trauma these days, he said. When I was your age, we just got on with it. You also drink half a bottle of whiskey every night and don't sleep, I almost said, but didn't. Mom sat down opposite me, folding her hands on the table like we were at a parent-teacher conference. Tell us one thing, she said. One thing we did that was so terrible. I froze. My brain flicked through a highlight reel of 100 moments. Crying in my bedroom while they argued loud enough that my wall shook. Mom telling me my tears were manipulative. Dad calling me a disappointment because I wanted to study art instead of engineering. I picked something small. Felt safer. Okay, I said, heart hammering. Do you remember when I was 14 and you didn't talk to me for a week because I came home 10 minutes late from Sophie's house? Mom frowned. That's not how it happened, she said. I took a breath. I texted you that the bus was delayed, I said. You didn't respond. When I walked in, you were sitting right there. I gestured to the living room. You looked at the clock, then at me and said, so you think the rules don't apply to you? And then you both ignored me for days. I'd say goodnight and you wouldn't answer. You told Dylan not to get involved. I cried every night. Mom's face went through a series of micro-expressions. Confusion, defensiveness, something like shame, before settling on indignant. We didn't ignore you, she said. We were giving you the silent treatment so you'd see we were serious. It's not the same thing. That is the same thing, I said. That is ignoring me. Dad shrugged. You broke the rules, he said. Actions have consequences. My consequence was thinking for 7 days that you hated me, I said. I could feel my throat tightening. I was 14. You could have grounded me, yelled, whatever. Instead, you pretended I didn't exist. Mom's eyes got shiny. We were young then, she said. We didn't know any better. Everyone loses their temper. Everyone does things they regret. Why do you have to cling to that one incident? It wasn't one incident. It never is. That's just one example, I said. There were lots. That's the point. It's the pattern. Well, everyone has issues with their parents, Dad said again, leaning back like the conversation bored him. You kids act like we invented messing up, and I just snapped a little. I know everyone has issues with their parents, I said. I know no one gets out of childhood without some scrapes, but not everyone has parents who use silence as punishment. Not everyone has parents who tell them they're ungrateful for being sad. Not everyone has to rehearse their tone in their head 3 times before asking a simple question because they're scared it'll set someone off. That's not just normal issues. The kitchen went very quiet. Mom wiped under her eyes angrily. So we're the worst parents in the world? Is that it? Did I say that? I asked, even though I already knew how this script went. You're saying we emotionally abused you, she shot back. You and your buzzwords. That's what your therapist told you, right? That you were abused. She didn't tell me anything, I said. She listened to what I said, and sometimes she used words to describe it. But yeah, some of it was abusive. It felt abusive. I'm allowed to name that. Dad laughed. A sharp, ugly sound. Abuse, he said. Did we starve you? Did we hit you with belts? Did we lock you in cupboards? No. So don't throw that word around. It's disrespectful to people who really suffered. My chest burned. Why does there have to be someone worse for my experience to count? I asked. If someone breaks their leg, do we tell them to shut up because someone else lost both legs? That's not the same, he said automatically. It is, I said. Pain doesn't cancel out other people's pain. And you telling me everyone has issues with their parents is just another way of saying, yours don't matter. Mom's face crumpled. We did our best, she whispered. We loved you. We love you. You make it sound like our whole lives with you were horrible. I felt a wave of guilt so strong it made me dizzy. Because she wasn't wrong that there were good times. There were nights she rubbed my back when I couldn't sleep. Days Dad took us to the beach and let us get ice cream even when we were already sticky with salt and sand. There were jokes and pizza nights and silly car sing-alongs. I know you loved me, I said, and my voice cracked. That's part of what makes this so confusing. It wasn't all bad. But the bad parts stick. They shaped me. I'm trying to unshape some of that. That doesn't mean I'm pretending the good never happened. It just means I'm not letting "we meant well" be the end of the conversation. Mom shook her head, tears spilling over now. I can't listen to this, she said, pushing away from the table. You're rewriting history. Dad stood up too, scraping his chair back. Therapy has made you selfish, he said. You used to be grateful. Now all you do is complain. That's how the conversation ended. Them walking away. Me sitting at the table with my cold tea and my heart beating way too fast, wondering for the millionth time if I am just ungrateful. On the drive home, I kept hearing that sentence on a loop. Everyone has issues with their parents. It hit me that they're right in a way. Most of my friends have some story about their mom's body comments or their dad's emotional distance. But when they talk about it, there's space for both frustration and safety. They roll their eyes and still answer their parents' calls without feeling like they're stepping into a minefield. For me, it feels less like issues and more like a root system I can't untangle. My relationship with authority, my terror of making mistakes, the way I assume anger means abandonment. It all traces back to that house with the red brick and the roses. I don't know yet what I'm going to do with my parents long term. I'm still talking to them, but less. I haven't gone no contact. I don't know if I ever will. That idea feels too big to hold right now. What I have decided is this. I'm done using everyone has issues with their parents as a way to gaslight myself. I'm done shrinking my experience down to something bite-sized and digestible so it doesn't upset the people who caused it. In therapy last week, I told Leah about the kitchen scene, about the line, about how small I felt. She listened, then said, "It sounds like they're using the universal nature of imperfect parenting to avoid taking responsibility for specific harm." I laughed because that's such a therapist sentence, but also because it was dead on. I keep thinking maybe I am being dramatic, I admitted. Like, maybe this really is just normal. She tilted her head. If a friend told you that their parents gave them the silent treatment for a week when they were a teenager, told them they were a disappointment, mocked their feelings, and then, when confronted, said, "Everyone has issues with their parents," what would you say? I sighed. I'd say that sucks, that they're allowed to feel hurt, that their parents are deflecting. She smiled a little. Interesting that you can see it so clearly for someone else. So yeah, that's where I'm at. Sitting in the uncomfortable space between everyone has issues and what happened to me was not okay. Trying to learn how to hold both. That my parents are human and flawed and loved me in the ways they knew how, and that those ways often hurt me. That I'm allowed to take that hurt seriously, even if it doesn't fit in a Lifetime movie. If you made it this far, thanks for reading. I don't really know what I want from posting this. Maybe just a validation? Or to hear from people who are also stuck in that weird limbo where your parents weren't monsters, but they also weren't safe, and you're so tired of being told that everyone has issues, like that's supposed to be a band-aid for a wound you're still learning to look at without flinching.